Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Star Trek Voyager, Season 5. So, as always, I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and the furry. To start with furry, it's Star Trek, so there's some furry-esque species in this. Moving on to the good and bad. So, just kind of going to go over episode by episode what I liked about it. So, episode 1, Night. I did like the introduction of the Malons, and I thought it was really funny that they spent so much time. I really love the reversal that they had where they're like, hey, you're dumping a whole bunch of things that are bad for the space environment, especially this dark space environment, but here's this technology that, again, we're just going to, once again, just start handing out technology, which was a whole not a prime directive allowed thing, but whatever, we're going to ignore that part because good for the environment. So here's this technology that makes it so that you don't have to dump your stuff anymore. And he's like, oh, thanks. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, not going to use it, though, because then I'd be out of business. Go fuck yourselves. And they're like, what? Somebody would care more about their business than about the environment? Who would have guessed? Side note, they have future interactions with the Malon, and I don't see them ever trying again to hand out that technology. Like, I really feel like they could have been like, hey, there's something I wouldn't take it, but you're dying because of radiation poisoning, so maybe you would take it back to your people so that future generations don't need this, huh? So I don't know, but yeah, that was fun that he was just like, nah, bro, I'm good. The next episode 2, Drone. It seems like a Hugh from Star Trek Next Generation, but like light, and then it just seems like they, like the whole thing at the very end of season 7. Spoiler alerts for season 7 for the next minute, is they're like, oh no, they're going to adapt because they're scanning all this 29th century or 20, 30 years ahead technology that we put on Voyager. Well, this whole cube thing, the thing that Hugh is, or that one is made of, is 29th century technology. So I really feel like you're given a chance to scan that a long time before season 7. Just throwing that out there, but that doesn't seem to be a big deal. So whatever. Then Extreme Risk. Yay for Delta Flyer. I love Delta Flyer. And it's interesting that they didn't make it so that she got over the Maquis quick. B'Elanna Torres didn't, so instead of helping design the Delta Flyer, she was all sad because she didn't feel anything. But then one conversation with Tuvok, and she's like, all right, now I'm fine. So I appreciated that they wanted to make it longer for the they can't just get over all of your friends back home dying, but then they also made it quick because of just how quickly they solved it for her. So good and bad with this episode. And then In the Flash, whatever it's called, is stupid. It's totally stupid. I hated this episode then. I hated it now. I hate it every time I think about it because it's stupid. Like, you introduce Species 8472 as the big baddies that are just like, kill everyone in this quadrant, like, you will all die, and they one-shot Borg cubes. And now they're like, hey, so we're going to make this whole planet with us looking humans, and having all these Starfleet interactions. We have enough information to recreate Starfleet headquarters, but not enough to understand that Starfleet doesn't actually want to kill us because we're not bad anymore. So yeah, go fuck yourselves. This episode was stupid, and it totally nerfed Species 8472 in a dumbass fucking way. Not every enemy has to turn into your friend later on. That's like on a TVY7 show, sure, I get it. Owl House, Wacko, Facko, whatever. There are shows where I like that and it makes sense. Voyager is not one of them. This episode sucks. Moving on. Once Upon a Time. I don't know that Neelix made the right choice for how long he kept the information away about Naomi's mom being missing. And if I remember correctly from the trivia that I read back in the day, is that the writers apparently forgot that Naomi's mom actually survived. And that's why you never see her mom again in the show. Because in this episode, it's all about did she die? Did she not die? She's trapped somewhere and gone beyond, blah, blah, blah. But they don't actually, like, she doesn't die. She survives. She comes back, but then you don't see her, and it's clear that they forgot about that, because there's times where, like, just Neelix is shown, like, tucking her into bed in like future episodes, and like Mother's nowhere to be seen ever, and no longer mentioned anymore. So that's kind of the funniest part about this whole episode. So yeah, and then Timeless. I really, really love this one. I love the sequence of Voyager crashing. I thought they did an excellent job with that, especially with the CGI available back in the day. And in fact, this season, they really started hitting more external shots for things. I think it really picked up in season 6, but like you start to notice it in this one. I liked old Ensign Harry Kim, or I guess not an ensign anymore, but I liked him. I thought it was fun how they aged him up, and also how they, continued on what his character, like a direction that his character could have developed had these things happened. So that was fun. And I like that they were, like, him and Chakotay were both dedicated. And I like that Chakotay had, like, a girlfriend who was just like, no, bro, I don't care that you're going to change everything. Like, I'm here for you. Like, solid. I like that. So, yeah, good stuff there. Infinite Regress. It was mostly just an excuse to have fun with 7 of 9. And also, yay for Naomi being an effective actress and having fun with them. Like, I like that they found a way to bring 7 and Naomi together for 7 being such a generally cold person to, like, start playing Kadaskat with Naomi was fun, and I liked how they came up with it. And it was just fun to see Jerry Ryan get to, exercise some of her acting chops on screen. So that was fun. That's really all I have for that episode. For Nothing Human, it's a stupid premise. Yeah, it's a stupid premise. Just like change appearances. Like, okay, cool. Yep, like that. Yeah, I'm just gonna move on from this episode. It was dumb. It was an entirely stupid premise. So yeah. So 30 days. Do you think he made the right choice with helping out this civilization with their water problem that would have gotten stuck in committee for forever? So yes, no. Do you think that the punishment was the correct choice? I liked how they framed the episode, though, as kind of a look back there. That was fun. For counterpoint, I do love a good double cross thriller. The main actor that they had as the main opposite person from that alien species, I thought he did a fantastic job. I loved every minute that he was on screen. I think that it was just a joy to see, and then I also love I love that you don't know anybody's loyalty or true motives, or who's doing what. Like, this was good writing, because you don't know what is, like, you're not confused as to what the fuck is going on, but you also can see that, there's different ways that this could go, and different loyalties or whatever else that this is going on. So this was just a fantastically shot, edited, storyline, whatever you want to call it, show. So I definitely enjoyed it a whole bunch. And then the next episode, Latent Image, the Doc descent into madness is phenomenal. Like, I just loved getting to see Robert Picardo work like that, especially in the mess hall. Like, in the mess hall when he starts doing that thing, is just, that scene is so fantastic of what an excellent actor can do. So props to him for that. And how do you think you would have reacted? What choice do you think you would have made? Do you think that they made the right choice the first time, or in future time, like the first time erasing his memory, and in future times not erasing his memory? So I thought that this episode was just, this is good Star Trek right here, is this episode. Then they followed it up with Bride of Chaotica, which is fun to see Captain Janeway as the bride, but the photonic aliens somehow appearing as 1920s thing was just a bit too much of a stretch, and then them working in that environment and then being like, oh, you guys aren't the real ones. I just didn't buy it as much, but it was fun enough to have the black and white, I guess. You needed an excuse. It's just, I felt like they could have done a little bit more to make it believable, but whatever. Gravity, I do love a good time passage episode, so I really do like how they showed. It's fun to see our characters and what happens when they're abandoned for long periods of time, but also they're able to come back and still do their job. You know, like Miles in that episode where he served 20 years in prison in his mind, and then he comes back. So in this one, they serve like 3 months, 3 years, whatever it is, down in this planet, and then they come back. So that was a really fun one. The one thing that I will say is that the guy who is contracted to seal the pit opening that they all get sucked into is just an asshole, and for no reason other than to advance the plot and make it more time sensitive that they get this done now because he's gonna seal it. Like, they definitely could have stopped him. They could have just explained to him more. Like, this was just, it was lazy writing to come to give more tension for when and how quickly they had to get to them before it was sealed up. So, but overall, I still enjoyed the episode because of that time dilation, and those are always fun. Bliss, this creature is sentient. I love how they threw in the doctor's thing of like, oh, it's just like highly evolved instinct. Like, go fuck yourself. No, he's coming up with individualized dreams, like, of wish fulfillment for each one of the Voyager crew. That's not a really powerful instinct. Like, it's definitely sentient, but they wanted to have it be okay that Ahab is going to go hunt his whale. And you know, I did enjoy the guy that they had play Ahab, but also it seemed like they forgot they had a season 1 creature that was, I feel like, significantly larger than this one. That they were just like, oh, this is the biggest creature ever. Like, okay, but what about season 1? But other than that, still a fun episode. Mostly because, you know, Ahab. Dark Frontier, you know, this is what I'm talking about. Exterior shots. There's so many of them, like in that Borg hive area where the Borg Queen is at. Just awesome. And so that, and the exterior shots are really cool, but the premise of this episode is a little dumb because they're using technology that the Hansons had developed to blend in from the Borg. But the Borg assimilated them. Like, that's the whole point of the Borg thing, is that they assimilate the biological and technological distinctiveness. So any tricks that the Hansons came up with, the Borg should have adapted into their operational procedures to not get taken advantage of like that again. So the fact that Voyager used them for so long and so much of this, both on the cube and in exterior things, a little hard to believe, a little dumb, stretches things a bit. And again, it's a little bit of that nerfing the ultimate enemy thing. You know, the Borg, especially when they were introduced in Next Generation, super duper unbeatable, and now we've just weakened them again a little bit more. So it's fun to be able to continue to interact with the Borg because they're just an interesting species as a concept, but at the same time, it is nerfing them a bit, but I'm willing to accept that because of how fun the Borg are for Voyager. Next is the disease. Poor Harry. Always falling for the wrong girl. This is another Harry falling for the wrong girl episode. It's fun. Moving on, course, Oblivion. So, it has a very sad end. So you remember how the last season they were on the demon planet, and I said there was the payoff, and the payoff was worth it? When rewatching this, I was just like, oh man, this episode ends so sadly. And I really wish that they had let the time capsule survive, because the time capsule, they said, were made out of parts and things that were not made of demon planet goo. And I think it's dumb that whatever the torpedo or whatever was carrying it dissolving somehow destroyed the time capsule too. I thought that was piss poor of the writers. I think that they should have given us just a little bit of hope that these, you know, the adventures of this ship for however many months that they were alive was not just all in vain and lost to the ether because their time capsule of their crew logs and what happened survived. But they didn't. So that made me very sad. So, yeah. Moving on to the fight. You know, I'm just not as big of a fan of the fight. It was an excuse to have a Chakotay episode, but just how I don't buy boxing being that popular still. And then I liked Boothby in some of the episodes that Boothby is in, but having Boothby be in this episode was just like, hey, we have this guy on contract, let's add him into another episode. Like, I didn't buy having Boothby in this episode. And then just in general, not a big fan of boxing. So, yeah. So, Think Tank. It has George Costanza in it, and he did a fantastic job. It was fun seeing him in there. I also thought that it was fun to have these clever guys causing the problems that they then are like, hey, give us this super awesome thing that we want to solve. So it was fun to see that, like, I'm playing both sides. Like, I'm equipping the weapons for both sides of the conflict type of people, and to see how that's implemented. So it was a fun time in this episode. Juggernaut. Yay for more Malon! I like the Malon as a species, and it was fun. But like I said, they should have just given him the tech as well. So moving on to someone to watch over me. Doc, you gotta stop falling in love with your patients. You fell in love with Kes, and then you fell in love with 7 of 9, and I feel like there was a future episode that they did shortly after this, where the doctor gets all, like, taken over and does, like, bad things. Like, it's like they tried out the doctor falling in love with 7, and then maybe they waited for the internet forums to be like, no, that's terrible, and so then they completely switched gears. But it definitely felt like they had a lot more chemistry than her and Chakotay. So yeah, it sucks that they had already tried to get, like, had already in the, like, early season when they were still having Tom be an asshole and Neelix be an asshole and the doctor be an asshole, that there was like this love quadrangle with Kes with them. But you know, I felt like earlier when 7 first came on board, like they had a little bit of germination of like, hey, the doctor kind of likes 7 and kind of like realized it a little bit. And then in this one, they really brought it forward. And then they later changed their mind. And I'm like, I think that they should have continued this. This makes a lot more sense for those two. But anywho, moving on to 11:59. I did not care about this episode at all. I did not care. It's like, hey, let's check out the actual 90s. Cool. I don't give a shit. Moving on. So Relativity is fun time travel. I like being able to see 7 for like one of the first times without her little ocular thing, but while still in like a Starfleet uniform. So that was fun. And then getting to bring Braxton back again, that was fun. And yeah, I love a good, not many, but good time travel episodes. I know in Voyager's like first season they had too many time paradoxes, but with this one, it's not just paradoxes, it's time travel funness to be like hopping around and getting, you know, some of the old hairstyles of Janeway and whatnot. So that was a fun time to be able to see that. And then Warhead was dumb. It was done before with B'Elanna and her Juggernaut missile thing, the missile that she sent that was going to destroy a Cardassian outpost or whatever, and she had to fight with it. And this Warhead one is just the same thing, but with the Doctor. And I'm sorry, it's even more like the B'Elanna episode with the android, where they turned it on and then it was bad. And they're like, oh wait, this is bad, let's turn it off. And like, oh, but then he helps him out in the end. Like literally, you can just swap B'Elanna for like the android for the Warhead. And this would be the same episode. So it's kind of dumb. But then they ended it on a really high note with Equinox. I love that actor, the main one. You know, he was just absolutely fantastic in everything that I've seen him in, mostly in like Dark Angel and that sort of thing. But he was awesome. And then they also had Bosch in this, which was funny. To see him like with his voice, and like I just see him as Bosch. So seeing Bosch as like just not a captain person on this episode was just kind of funny. And then also they have the dude who ends up playing like the King of the Vampires from Supernatural in there. And yeah, so that was all fun. The one thing that I will say that was kind of bad about this episode is that I feel like the timeline for Caretaker bringing them, and then Voyager skipped 10,000 light years, and then it was like 2,000, and then however many thousand, all of that, and it's been out there for 5 years. And then versus how many of these things they killed, how close the species is that they showed, that makes it so that the warp drive can go fast. Like, the whole timeline and distance thing for the Equinox just doesn't make any sense to me. It was, like, if they'd been able to explain that better, but I can see why it took so long to figure out that these aliens were the fuel source because of just time distance requirements and how much these were attacking versus where these aliens were at. It just doesn't jive. It just doesn't jive. Maybe somebody needs to make like an infographic for me for how that could work, but for what they presented and what I remember seeing, it just does not work. But yeah, so overall, I like the season a lot of highs, couple of lows, a little bit of repeats, but overall, really enjoyed the season. So, 2 thumbs up because, of course, it's Voyager and Star Trek. I'm going to thumbs up it. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you at the next one. Bye.